is, both my immediate family and my church family. I remember talking to Pastor Todd about praying about that interview, knowing that it was what I wanted, but I was praying that it's also what he wanted too. My wife was always in my corner, reminding me that I was approached and I didn't have to go anywhere for this opportunity, reminding me of how I always figure it out and make my mark. My boys were praying for me every night. My mom and dad were praying for me and always available to me if I ever needed to talk. My friends were behind me. I had prayers coming from every single direction. Even with all of the love and prayers, an excerpt from the book Kill the Spider by Carlos Whitaker puts the feeling that I had very well. Imagine for a moment that you're surrounded by every single person in the world who loves you. They're celebrating you with a huge party. Everyone is waiting to talk to you and tell you they love you and that you are amazing. Sounds awesome, doesn't it? Now imagine you're in a spacesuit. You can barely hear what anyone is saying, and although you're being hugged, you can't feel a thing. In the midst of not being alone, you feel completely alone. We don't always hear about this feeling, because as my dad has said before, some of us are living our lives in quiet desperation, and it also describes that incredibly loud silence that you hear. Well, it worked out. Despite my concerns, despite my sneeze, I was given the instant offer at what I was asking, no need to negotiate. I was relieved for the moment. My eyes began to water up as I hugged Jess after the interview. I was okay, but this wasn't the end. I went to my doctor to get help and see if I could start back on the medicine that I had back in high school, hoping they would be able to knock it out of the park and get me back on my feet. Well, that didn't happen the way I hoped. In fact, it got much worse. Combining that medicine that I used to take with all the medicines that I now take, because I'm not as healthy as I was then, tripled my anxiety. Remember when I mentioned that I wasn't ever very emotional? I was incredibly emotional for the next several weeks. I retreated away from the world, real world, virtual world, social world, all of it. Though I had retreated inside both my home and myself, I tried as hard as I could to open up more to God. I asked for strength, courage, and most of all, peace. I was always in fear that I wasn't doing enough, only to beat myself up more for not being able to help here at the church. You see, despite all that was going on, I honestly still enjoyed helping with the media ministry, knowing that I could use my gifts to help the church. At first, I even felt that it was selfish to think that I could help make this church, our church, look even better, that I could be the one to help create our online presence. But after talking to my dad, I realized it wasn't selfish at all, but a blessing and a way for me to share my own ministry and discipleship. But I still had to go to work. I believe that on my first day, which was in person, on my way to Huntsville, the Lord actually gave me a sign. Of all places, as I came across Whitesburg Bridge, I saw on the side of a work truck Proverbs 16:9. Now, I've seen scriptures on the sides of trucks all the time, but this was one I hadn't seen before. And normally I would think nothing of it, but I decided that yes, while I was driving, I would look it up. It reads, "In their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." Despite my fear, despite my concerns, it wasn't my plan but His that I was following. It gave me some solace that day. Even though my body and mind were spinning like crazy, my spirit was holding me in place. It wasn't easy that day. Still dizzy, still nauseous, unable to focus, still freaking out a bit. I even ate about 3/4 of a piece of bread that entire day, but I survived, and I was relieved for the moment. I started working remotely the next day, but wasn't feeling much better. But I was still praying for peace as I'd wake up every morning with my entire body shaking. I'd pray for strength to make it through the Zoom meetings and wisdom as I dove into learning a new process, new team, everything. I was barely able to leave the house for nearly a month. Just thinking about leaving would cause that panic to rise up again. I couldn't eat, I could barely drink, I was nauseous almost all day long, to the point that I actually lost 20 pounds in a very short period of time. A fantastic but incredibly unhealthy way to lose weight, by the way. I would then break down in tears each night, but Jessica was my rock and it tore me up. The manly side of me said that I was supposed to be her rock, to support her and keep her chin up despite everything that she had recently had happen in her life. But she was there for me and held me. One night, I was unable to sleep. Tears were rolling down my cheeks, praying for it to stop, for all the emotional pain to go away. And Jess did something amazing. She got up and said, "I know what I can do for you." You could almost hear the smile on her face in that dark room. She came back into our bedroom with this pocket prayer shawl, the same prayer shawl that she kept when her parents passed and helped keep her strong in the most difficult times. She gave it to me and I was overwhelmed. I told her how much I thank God for her, and I keep it with me every moment that I can. It was that Sunday that she and the boys went to church, and I stayed home. I was in no condition to make it that morning. However, thanks to the graciousness and blessing of those standing in for me on the media team, I was able to watch it from the house. I was glad that I was alone, though to be honest, I wasn't. God was there with me. I was sitting up in my bed, a blanket over my shoulder, still shivering from waking up. The music and message were spot on that morning. I wept with my arms wide open, thanking the Lord over and over again. I may have been to all kinds of churches, Church of God, Assembly of God, every single Baptist church you can think of, but I've never been a person to lift my arms. But for that moment of peace and of hope, he deserved everything that I had, and it was a change in my life. I had always been a believer. I had always considered myself to be a pretty good Christian, but this felt so much closer than I had ever been. It was at this point that I made some decisions to truly be who I thought I was and who he thought I was, who my wife thought I was, who my friends and family thought I was. I was no longer an imposter, but I was me. It's still hard to accept that. I reached out to Pastor Todd, who helped me with reassurance and some things to read, some guidance, and the peace of mind that God was there. I talked more with my parents and thanked them for being there. I made sure that Jess knew how truly blessed I was that she was part of my life, that these last 20 years were no fluke, and that she was a huge part of the reason that I am where and who I am today. I reassured the boys that I was okay and that things were getting better. Friends have even noticed a little bit of that passion and that twinkle in my eye coming back. I returned to my doctor, and he changed my prescription. Even though anxiety medicines usually are known to numb emotions to some extent, I told Jess that while we were down at the beach on our 20th anniversary, that when you're working with a God who can snap things into existence and literally move mountains, a little bit of medicine isn't going to stop him from reaching you. I began to break apart that stigma that I myself used to have. I knew that through God, the right things would come to be. I just need to be patient, and I need to continue to be patient. It was also at this point that I learned how much the words of that song that I mentioned earlier meant to me. I want to thank Rachel, Kelly, Chris, and Brian for recording this one Wednesday for me. The song begins with my fears. And I promise I'm not going to sing it.
I keep fighting voices in my mind that say I'm not enough. Every single lie that tells me I will never measure up. Am I more than just the sum of every high and every low? Remind me once again just who I am, because I need to know.
It then reminds me that these are my fears and not his fears. Instead, he provides hope.
You say I'm loved when I can't feel it. You say I am strong when I think I am weak. You say I am loved when I am falling short, when I don't belong. Oh, you say I am yours, and I believe. Oh, I believe what you say of me. I believe.
I'm still a work in progress. Every day a little better than the last. None of us are perfect. We're all broken, but God knows that, and his grace is sufficient. We can't earn the love that he so freely gives away. You just have to be willing to lay it at his feet. So it's with that I leave you with some words of wisdom that I've learned along this journey. No matter the fears, no matter how weak or timid you may feel, no matter how much of an imposter you might believe you are, or how worthless you think you are, he believes in you. You are a child of God, and he wants to bless you. He wants to bless you so that you can bless others. He is there to hold your hand or carry you when you can no longer walk. Be the beach class like Pastor Todd talked about in a recent series. God will make you into something beautiful. Thank you for this chance to share this story. I hope that it helps you realize how much God loves you, fears, failures, and all. He will take those failures, and he will also be victorious. Also, if you'd like to share your story, but have some reservations like I did before this, about standing in front of a crowd, please let me know and I'd be glad to help. To do for others as you can do for yourself is never a burden, but a blessing. To give others the freedom to share their stories. You are all a blessing to me. Let me be a blessing to you. Thank you.
So much, Brad, for sharing with us today and the courage to do that. We've given you an acronym on the back of your bulletin today, and you can fill that in. We give you the fill in the blank answers on the bottom there. But let me just walk this through you today. Practical ways that we can come alongside you and our community and people